Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Laurissa Krishock with OneTrust, coming to you from Cincinnati, Ohio. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Sanjay Saxena at Bread Financial. Sanjay has had leadership roles with several of the Fortune 500 organizations such as Northern Trust and Bank of Montreal. Before joining Bread Financial, Sanjay was a Celebrity Financial as their Chief Digital and Data Officer. He was responsible for strategy and roadmaps in their digital and data transformation journey. Sanjay is also on the editorial board of CDO Magazine. He has been featured in a number of industry articles, participated in several panels and interviews, much like this one. So I'm excited to be here with you today. Welcome, Sanjay.
Thank you, Larissa. I'm happy to be here.
So I wanted to dive right in because there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom that you have. So first question is, you have many years of experience in leadership roles in data. So how have you seen this role shift and change over the last 5 years? Because we know there's been a lot of change in this role.
Larissa, that's really a great question. When we think about the role of the head of data or a CDO, as you're also well aware, it's a journey. And initially, these roles were created in organizations based on regulatory needs. Uh, right after the financial crisis, in fact, that's where disciplines such as enterprise data governance and data management became very important. And then analytics, again, there's been an upsurge, especially on the AI ML side of things.
Yeah.
So increasingly, there was this focus that we need somebody on the business side. So that is really the first transformation, that instead of these roles or data roles being on the technology side, there was a need to have uh, a chief data officer or a head of data on the business side. In terms of the evolution, then starting with the regulatory initiatives, we have gone well past it in the past 5 years. There's been a lot more engagement of the CDO in terms of strategic planning, being involved in the strategy of the firm and evolving the digital and or the data strategy based on the overall strategy. Uh, th- Also, the roles are now getting aligned to much more senior levels of leadership within the company. In some cases, it's a C-suite role, um, uh, and in others, it is right there at the top. And we are also seeing an increased awareness from a board perspective in terms of the importance of data and digital, uh, which is contributing to that evolution of the role. And overall, I would say that the role is getting much more focused from a business perspective and being closely aligning with the business on solving the data issues that are there. And generally, there is a much broader acceptance uh, of having that business-led data organization, and that, in my mind, is the biggest shift that I've seen.
Yeah, thank you for that. We're actually seeing a lot of that too. Just a lot of things in my experience, and I know at OneTrust, we're seeing a lot come down from the board level. So thank you. I wanted to continue on with that. Like, what is your advice to new, chief data officers or people in similar roles in terms of maybe the first three things that you'd want to assess in the business and prioritize as you start out?
For people who are joining new in this role, I would say the first and the foremost thing is, do you truly understand what are the problems that are afflicting the company, and how do those relate to data? So my first advice to practitioners is, don't jump ahead in terms of your conclusions. Talk to a number of stakeholders across the company, understand the lay of the land, and understand what problem is the most important to solve. Because, as you know, data goes in a lot of different directions. There is the operational aspects, the analytical aspects, and then the regulatory and the management aspects. So there are lots of different directions that your strategy can take. So don't rush into a set of assumptions that may or may not bear out. just talk to stakeholders and clearly have uh, align that with the direction of the senior leadership. And the second thing that obviously follows from there is that you need to make the investment in terms of strategy. So building out a strong data strategy is an important component, and uh, uh, and that includes all aspects of data management, governance, analytics. Make sure you have a comprehensive strategy across the board, along with funding required for the role, tools and technology aspects, etc. So give that a considerable thought, and come up with that detailed plan or roadmap that you can explain to the board. And the third thing is really, as I said in my first response, this is not about technology. This is not about implementation of a large warehouse or whatever. It is really about solving business problems. So make sure that your speak is a business speak as opposed to a technology speak, right? You're mainly addressing business audience and senior level business audience. So you should it should be geared towards business use cases that you can solve.
Yeah, solving business problems, took that out. I think that's key. Um, and then dovetailing into that, how do you go about leveraging the data analytics that you find to really provide actionable insights for decision making? So I know a lot of the things that you talk about and what I've seen you present before is really about, okay, the value back to the business. So how do you go about leveraging those data analytics?
So when it comes to analytics, it's another tool that we have. It is really to make the organization more data driven, right?
Yeah.
So as you know, the evolution of our organizations, um, more and more our decision making is becoming data driven, and there are and maybe number of executives across the board who are more used to maybe a gut feel, maybe used to leveraging their experiences to making decisions. But analytics is all about the science of uh, utilizing data to make those decisions more effectively. So both looking at the past, forecasting the future, and then ultimately getting into the more advanced AI and ML aspects. Now, in my past, in particular, my role at Celebrity and Bank of Montreal and other places, a lot of my focus was on analytics and building out the analytics capabilities. And you start with um, the most simple use cases, perhaps, that can quickly demonstrate value. It could be small use cases. It could be just even extending your BI tool set and your forecasting capabilities, maybe a good starting point, for example, right? So working with the business leaders to establish those use cases, and then introducing the right tools, technologies, algorithms to make sure that that happens. And in order to do that, obviously you need a good team of people, data scientists. You need the whole spectrum, right? You need people who can write good reports from a historical perspective. You need to know, people need to understand, or the businesses need to understand the current state before they'll start looking at the future projections. And then you get into the more advanced data science kind of things where you are actually predicting outcomes. You are utilizing existing data for the future. So there's a whole spectrum of things. And again, the way to solve this is really rather simple. That you take the business use cases and say, all right, what kind of analytics needs to be developed to be able to uh, draw insights out of this data, right? Is it just historical perspectives I need to share? Is it more futuristic forecasting using more statistical techniques? Or does it even go beyond statistical techniques to machine learning and AI, right? So I think the most important thing in that whole analytics journey is engagement of the business and proper business use cases. B, being able to try out the smaller use cases and show results. And the third thing is having a good team that can then take on the more complex aspects of the problem solving.
Yeah, that's great advice. The other thing about that is, so this is one of the challenges that we see out in the market and with our organizations is how do you bring those business units together to align on those data initiatives and the organizational goals that you're talking about?
That again, I think in my mind, it stems from our strategy, right? So if you identify those early on as gaps or areas of opportunities, in any community, business community, your users, there are two kinds of people who are early adopters and others who will take the time to understand and appreciate the value of what you're doing. So it is really taking those early adopters, people who are much more fluent, perhaps have done some work, some experimental POC kind of work, uh, and then solving their immediate issues and problems. So I would almost advocate a bottom up kind of an approach there to say, okay, seed the organization with enough use cases and enough success stories, and then ultimately then use that to bring the bigger strategy into play. So it's like the crawl, walk, and run kind of a strategy, right? So you need to run to crawl, you need to understand what is most important to solve, and then line up the business users, uh, show them outcomes in terms of fast failures or successes of your efforts, and then build on bigger use cases from there, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's no cookie cutter approach to this. This is a very practical sort of a space where, again, you're delivering business value, and you're making that a measure of your success as you go forward.
I'm thankful so much, Sanjay, for the time that you spent. Time is a commodity, and I know that you're very busy. So thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. And please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. There's another good one that Sanjay has. And again, remember that cdomagazine.tech, TECH, to see those other additional interviews. And again, thank you.
Thank you, and a very happy new year.